Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. Get this record. You can't hear me, right?
We could share.
Yeah, but you talk a lot. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the Commissioner Budget Workshop meeting of February 16th, 2022 at 6 p.m. here at the Sussex County Community College Performing Arts Center. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask Terry to please call the roll. No worries.
Commissioner Carney,
Here.
Commissioner Fantasia,
Here.
Director Fasano,
Here.
Commissioner Patillo,
Here.
Commissioner Yard.
Here.
Thank you, Terry. Now I'd ask if you can please join me in rising for a moment of silence and a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, adequate notice as defined by Section 3D of Chapter 231, PL 1975 has been made by regular mail and email. Such notice being submitted on January 9th, 2022, from the Administrative Center of the County of Sussex, located at 1 Spring Street, Newton, New Jersey, to the following: the New Jersey Herald, the Star Ledger, WSUS Radio, and WNNJ Radio, and is also posted on the bulletin board maintained in the Administrative Center for Public Announcements and has been submitted to the Sussex County Clerk in compliance with said act. At this time, we'd like to remind you to please mute all electronic devices. Item 5 on our agenda is the approval of our agenda. Do we have a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
Commissioner Patillo moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Fantasia seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. Item 6 on our agenda is proclamations. We have none. Item 7 is public hearings. We have none. Item 8 on our agenda is public session from the floor. This public session is for those wishing to make a comment of 3 minutes or less regarding an agenda item. We ask that you please line up to the microphone, maintain 6 feet social distance with other attendees, and when you arrive to the microphone, state your name, municipality, and agenda topic for the record. At the close of public comment, I will do my best to address any questions or comments. Is there a motion to open the floor for public comment?
So moved.
Commissioner Patillo moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Fantasia seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries, and the floor is open for public comment regarding agenda items only. Is there anyone who'd like to make a public comment? Seeing none, is there a motion to close the floor for public comment?
So moved.
Commissioner Patillo moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Fantasia seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. We have no commissioner comments. We have no consent agenda. We have no minutes. We have no appointments or resignations, thankfully. We have no resolutions. We have no awards of contract, but we do have a really important financial item, which is why we're here tonight, and that is our 2022 budget review. So with that, I'm going to pass this off to our county administrator for him to lead us through it all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. As you all are aware, we've been working for the better part of 6 months in preparation for this evening's work session, and a tremendous amount of work has gone into the preparation of the document. Before we do that, I would like to ask our auditor, Ray Sarinelli, to address the board, to give you an overview of the county's financial position, along with some preliminary comments on what you will hear from me this evening. Ray?
Thanks, Greg. So I thought I'd start by looking back at 2021 to give you a perspective of where you were so we can see where we're going as we look at the 2022 budget. So in looking at your year-end unaudited financial statements, your fund balance is up. We expected that. A municipality or a county, in your case, operates on a 2-year budget cycle. So a lot of the savings that you saw during the pandemic, during the shutdown, when the county government wasn't operating at its maximum capacity, are now flowing back into the fund balance. So those are getting closed out and moved into fund balance. So we expected that. We knew that. We knew that going into 2021, that we didn't fully expend some of our appropriations in 2020, and that the 2021 fund balance was going to be up. So that means that your fund balance is up. That means you're in a very good financial position. Your reserves are all up and in a healthy, good place. So, in looking at, when we went to the rating agency in 2021, they had some very positive things to say about Sussex County. As far as the outlook, the fiscal management, where things are, that was very positive. So coming into the 2022, when we go out to go for debt in the May, June timeframe, I expect them to be even more pleased, especially comparatively, right? We know some municipalities, some counties are struggling. They weren't well planned for such an economic downturn, and they're struggling to find ways to make things work, whereas Sussex County actually turned out to be in a better position at the end of the pandemic. So a good thing. I don't think we would want to go through what we went through to have a good financial position, but it turned out pretty nicely for us financially, so that's a good thing. Looking at the budget, Greg is going to get into a lot of the details in the PowerPoint, so I was just going to give an overview from an outsider's perspective, the independent auditor's position of where things are. And it's a very good plan. It meets the needs, including an increase in the contribution to your capital cash, which I know is very important to all of you. We've discussed that, and your debt plan and trying to reduce that debt. So moving forward, that's going to help you for that perspective. So I think it meets a lot of the goals that were given to the administration while having a very moderate tax increase. So, you've been on a very good plan over the last 10 or 15 years, and this budget continues that good planning of long-term planning through the budget. So, I'll let Greg cover a lot of the details of what is going into the budget, but overall, it's a very nice plan for the upcoming year. Does anybody have any questions before I sit down?
I have a question. You said our fund balance, we're in good shape for this year with our fund balance, and so is there a surplus in that, or are we just in good shape? Is there money, that extra funding that we can use through that?
So I think when we get into the budget, you'll see the use of fund balance through the budget has increased, and I don't think that's something that will be there forever, right? It's some one-time savings that we saw. So I think over time we might see a reduction in what we're using as far as fund balance through the budget. But as you'll see in the details of what Greg has, the usage of fund balance in the 2022 budget is up about $1 million, which is probably the biggest increase I think we've seen in quite some time, warranted given the increase in the fund balance that's in your financial statements. So, yes, there is the return of fund balance into the budget in this budget that I think, over time we'll have to keep an eye on. Turn it back over to you, Greg.
Thank you very much, Ray. So, as I said, and you all certainly are aware, there's a tremendous amount of time and effort that goes into the preparation of the county budget. And I want to recognize the members of the Budget Subcommittee as well as the Capital Budget Subcommittee. The Budget Subcommittee comprised of Director Fasano, Commissioner Fantasia, myself, our CFO and Chief Computer Operator this evening, Elka Yetter, and Mary Lee Van Hooker, our Budget Management Division Director. The Capital Budget Subcommittee comprised of Commissioner Patillo, Commissioner Yardley, myself, our CFO, and our Budget Director. We also had the pleasure of being able to sit with Deputy Director Carney and review the budget documents as well, and I appreciate the time that you took to sit with us and go through the draft plan. So moving on, as you're aware, the budget is broken down into two main components, revenues and appropriations. And the county revenues, the county revenues are fairly straightforward, which comprise several different component pieces, the largest being the county purpose tax, which in this budget is proposed at $99,756,588, or 85% of the total county budget. And keep in mind that the revenue picture that you're looking at is effectively prescribed by the state of New Jersey through its budget law. So counties, along with municipal governments, are limited to the revenues that the state allows county and local governments to use. And you would find in almost all county organizations, and certainly the municipal organizations, the vast majority of the revenues that are used to support their programs come from property taxes. But I think sometimes, because there's so much pressure that's put on the commissioners in terms of where property taxes are going to be, it's important that the public understand that that is prescribed by the state of New Jersey. It's not any action that you all take that say we're going to raise property taxes to support our government, but the state of New Jersey effectively dictates by law that is where the majority of your revenues come from. The other component pieces, and Commissioner Yardley mentioned this before, is fund balance to support the budget. As Mr. Serinelli indicated, we are proposing to increase the use of fund balance this year based upon the good financial position the county is in. I will mention that we do need to be mindful of this moving forward, in as much as we do not want to become dependent upon such a large increase in fund balance, but we felt, given what the balance in the fund balance account was at year's end, that an increase to that revenue was appropriate for 2022. In addition, then, there are miscellaneous revenues. That comes from a whole variety of different sources, including various fees and permits that the county will collect over the course of the year. There is state aid, and the state aid is for county different than that of municipal government. The state aid comes in from insurance franchise fees and represents the state's contribution towards the Chapter 12 program, which is the monies that are used for capital improvements at the college. We also have what is referred to in the budget as offset with appropriations. That revenue represents the grant revenue that the county will receive in support of a whole variety of different programs. That effectively is revenue, revenue neutral, as you will find an appropriation entitled offset by revenue, and those two numbers equal. So that represents the grant revenue along with the grant expenses that the county will receive for the year. We've talked about the county purpose tax, and then there is a component piece of property taxes that we refer to as new construction. For the state reporting purposes, it's all lumped into property taxes, but that new construction represents revenue that is generated through the construction of new real estate in the county, commercial and residential, that comes to us in the form of revenue that we otherwise would not previously have recognized. So property taxes comprise of both the tax effort that comes from the county taxpayer, along with those additional new revenues that come to us through new construction. So the budget as proposed for 2020 totals $117,573,709. That is up $2.4 million from the 2021 adopted budget, or an increase of 2.12%. And then we'll take a look at appropriations, and revenues and appropriations need to total, at least that's what Elka tells me, or equal. And the total appropriations are $117,573,709. And the slide in front of you, behind me, shows the various component pieces, including general government, land use administration, code enforcement, insurance, public safety, public works, health and welfare, education, other common operating functions, utility expenses, and unclassified appropriations, as well as the appropriation that we talked about, the offset by revenue, which is where the grant monies are earmarked. In addition to that, you also have your capital improvements, county debt service, and deferred charges and statutory expenses, with the statutory expenses being primarily your pension obligations. So you can see there the various component pieces of appropriations. We can get into a little bit more detail in a moment. But moving on, we wanted to be able to demonstrate what, for every tax dollar that comes to the county, where that's spent in terms of the various programmatic pieces that we've just discussed. So 22 cents goes towards capital, debt, and our statutory expenditures, which is pension. 20 cents goes to public safety, which covers emergency communications, the sheriff's office, the Office of Emergency Management, the prosecutor's office. We then have 19 cents of every dollar going to insurance, and that comes in three primary forms. One is our general liability insurance, second is workers' compensation, and then a large piece for group health insurance. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through the presentation. 12 cents of every dollar goes to Public Works, which includes our Office of Bridge and Traffic Safety, our Division of Public Works. We then have 10 cents going to education, which is in support of both the college as well as the technical school. General government is also 10 cents, and that is much of what you all know in terms of the administrative support structures that comprise county government, including administration, finance and treasury. The Office of Engineering is contained within general government. The clerk of the board, the Board of County Commissioners, the county clerk, and the surrogate's office are all part of general government. Health and welfare represents 5 cents of every dollar, and that is the operation that is managed by Carol Navrat and her staff, including our Division of Health, that we have come to rely upon rather extensively over the last few years. And then the last 2 cents cover our utilities and other common expenses. So the 2022 budget as presented represents a 2.12% increase from the adopted 2021 budget. And you see here the various metrics that we've identified, including the total budget amount, what total salary and wages are, which for 2022 are $33.6 million. Total pension contributions are $5.5 million, and a county tax effort of $99.8 million. And you have some historical information on that budget slide to compare. Now, as we were preparing the budget, and as the commissioners are aware, we recognized that there was an opportunity to present to the board a budget alternate that was slightly different than what was previously prepared and what's been presented this evening. And so I'd like to take a little bit of time to talk about this budget alternate and what we would propose the board consider. The budget alternate has a few component pieces, which includes an appropriation, a change in the appropriation for group health insurance. And that would come as a result if the board were to choose to modify the retiree and dependent insurance that the county currently has. We've had ongoing discussions with the union. The board has heard from your health insurance broker as to the equal to or better nature of the insurance product that is being considered. And if the board were to implement that for a May 1st start date, we would be able to reduce the appropriation for group health insurance by $830,000. Recognizing that there would be some savings, and the board having rather clearly stated its desire to address ongoing issues of employee compensation, particularly surrounding issues of recruitment and retention, it is proposed that a portion of that savings would be put into an appropriation for salary adjustments. And it's proposed that that appropriation would be placed at $619,000. In order then to ensure that our revenues match our appropriations, there would have to be some corresponding modifications to both fund balance and the county purpose tax to accomplish this. And it's recommended that fund balance would be reduced $107,650, with the county purpose tax being reduced $103,350, which then provides a new total appropriations for the budget alternate at $117,362,709. And if we go to the next slide, you will see then a change in what we were just discussing before, and what was up on the screen behind me, is that the 2022 budget alternate represents a 1.94% increase from the adopted 2021 budget. And again, looking at what the budget would be, total salary and wages being $34.2 million, pension wouldn't change, and the tax levy would be slightly reduced. And so that is the budget alternate that we wanted to put before the commissioners for your consideration. The budget as presented this evening represents essentially the budget that we've been working on over these last several months, and the more detailed presentation that you all had seen previously. And as we recognize that there were some opportunities to do something with the retiree health benefits, we wanted to put forward that for the board's consideration. Again, if the board were so inclined to advance that budget alternate, there would be a resolution required to amend the retiree benefits. So I want to just jump ahead, not in the PowerPoint presentation, but in the package that the board was furnished, just to look at the budget alternate in a little more detail. And this ties in with some of the figures that we heard from Mr. Serinelli. So on the revenue side, the fund balance that is proposed to be used is $7,092,350, which represents a $196,350 increase, or 14.5% more fund balance than what was used in the 2021 adopted budget. Again, the administration can recommend this inasmuch as we saw an increase in the fund balance itself and believe that it is an appropriate use of that fund balance and still keeps us within the limits as established by this board in terms of our fund balance policy. We have miscellaneous revenues of $5,108,210. That represents a 6.4% increase, or $305,929. The state aid is $2,005,287, an increase of $142,331, or 7.6% more. The offset with appropriations, which represents the grant revenue, is $3,503,624, which is down about $1.4 million, but that effectively is as a result of what the county has been awarded to date. That number then changes, as you all are familiar with, the adoption of the Chapter 159 resolutions over the course of the year allow us to take in new grant awards and insert appropriations in our budget, and we anticipate that that will continue to take place. Also, too, the state is making some adjustments to its grants to have the grants run more in alignment with the state that's on a fiscal year as opposed to the county where our budget operates on a calendar year. So that also is some of the reason why the grants are down. The county purpose tax for all of this budget alternate would be $99,200,100, or up 1.85%. And the new construction remains unchanged from the budget that we talked about earlier of $453,138. Again, that gives you total revenues of $117,362,709, or an increase of $2,233,726, or a 1.94% increase over the 2021 budget. Just to speak to the appropriations, we see total salary and wages going up $1,385,389, or 4.22%. That number includes the additional $619,000 appropriation for salary adjustments. And total other expense is up $386,109, or just 0.67. So total operations are up just under 2%, including that appropriation for salary adjustments. The total operations are $92,374,725, or up $1,771,498, or 1.96%. This budget continues to support the plan that the board had implemented some years back to include an increase in the capital improvement, and that appropriation has an additional $500,000 for a total appropriation of capital improvements of $2 million. County debt service is down just slightly. That's based upon our debt schedules and what we are required to pay back, so effectively staying flat. And our deferred charges and statutory expenditures are just up $11,179. We did recognize a benefit in this year's statutory expenditures with the police and fire pensions going down as a result of the reduction in the Corrections Bureau staff. The pension payments are always delayed a number of years the way that they're calculated by the state, and this was the first year that we saw the reduction in the police and fire retirement system payment, which is why you're not seeing a significant increase in the deferred charges and statutory expenditures. We did see an increase in the public employee retirement system payment, but again, that was effectively offset by the reduction in PFRS. So again, appropriations equaling revenues, the total general appropriations would be $117 million, $117,362,709, or up 1.94%. The budget, including the alternate, advances a number of county priorities, including the asset management system that we've talked about with the county engineer, which will benefit both the Department of Engineering and Planning, as well as the component pieces, particularly our Office of Bridge and Traffic Safety, as well as the Division of Engineering, and also our tree crew. This also provides us the ability to continue to comply with the new election mandates as legislated by the state of New Jersey. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to our capital improvement program. It supports Public Works with staffing and operating funds to fulfill our highway occupancy permit requirements, which have increased rather significantly over the last 2 years. And this is something I would like to highlight in as much as it's been very important to me, as well as I know it's been important to the board. We have, over a number of years, been providing greater staffing to the Division of Public Works, our Office of Bridge and Traffic Safety, as well as the Division of Parks and Forestry, which is the tree crew, because the staffing levels had gotten so low over the last 10 years that we've effectively been rebuilding our ability to operate and maintain our transportation infrastructure. And that's been a very significant initiative that the board should be very proud of and take considerable credit in advancing that. In addition, this moves some of the expenses that previously had been classified as capital expenses because we were involved in large capital remediation projects, and moves those monies out of capital into the Division of Facilities for the ongoing operation and maintenance now, which takes the form of a lot of monitoring of the various sites that are under the auspices of the county's licensed site remediation professional. These are legacy sites that have had pollution that the county has invested very heavily to clean and to come into compliance with the Department of Environmental Protection regulations. And so it's appropriate at this time that so much of the remediation work has been completed, but the permit requirements have specific monitoring component to it, that the monitoring will be done with appropriations that will be included inside the operating budget itself. And as was mentioned before, it maintains the level of funding for debt service and capital improvements consistent with the debt policy that the board has adopted. Also, too, with the budget alternate, it does address the issues of compensation that the board has been very concerned about in terms of being able to recruit and retain qualified staff. So then I want to just take a moment and talk about the capital budget. The capital budget effectively represents the county's investment in its infrastructure, and much like the revenues and appropriations, there are a number of component pieces to the county's capital program, which this year totals $24.9 million. We have public safety, fleet management, which represents the vehicle replacements that we do on an annual basis. There are capital improvements proposed at the libraries. Education represents capital projects at the technical school as well as the college, including some funds for the Securing Our Children's Future Bond Act grant. Don't make me say that again. And the board has received presentations from both the technical school as well as the college in regards to those initiatives. We have been able to fund a number of facility improvements. These improvements may be a misnomer. A lot of this is preventive maintenance in terms of roof replacements and just maintaining the county's physical plant. And you see a very significant contribution towards our roads and bridges, as that is a very significant asset that the county is responsible for maintaining. I do want to just take a moment and highlight elections, even though it's a tiny, small piece of that of the otherwise large pie, but the monies that are included in the 2022 capital program for elections allows for the complete replacement of all voting equipment in the county. The irony of this is the state mandated a number of changes over the last few years in terms of early voting, vote by mail. There were requirements to implement electronic poll books, and it actually coincided with my arrival as county administrator. Working with the Board of Elections, it was recognized that the county's voting equipment was soon going to be no longer, obsolete, thank you. And there was going to be a need to replace that. However, as you might imagine, the cost of that equipment is rather expensive. And so we took a phased approach, putting aside capital appropriations over a number of years. And this represents the last piece that is needed to replace all of the election equipment in its entirety. So that is a project that I'm very happy to see completed, and I know that the Board of Elections has put a lot of hard work into getting the new equipment on. This will allow them to complete the purchase and be in a position to have that fully implemented for the elections this year. As we do most years, we give you just kind of a top 10 of the most significant projects. Some of this is combined, so you see facility improvements. That represents a whole number of projects that will support the county's physical plant. We have a number of bridge replacements and improvements in excess of $3.5 million. We continue with a very aggressive road resurfacing program where much of the transportation infrastructure monies are put to invest back in our road resurfacing. This is another project that the county should take a lot of pride in. This will be, I believe, the third year that we are making a significant investment in the replacement of obsolete guide rail. And that has been a very worthwhile project, as the obsolete guide rail represents a liability for us, and this project is doing a very good job of getting out some of the oldest and deficient guide rail and being replaced with new. We've talked about the various capital improvements at the college, including the grant application, along with improvements at the technical school. As was mentioned, there is the ongoing replacement of vehicles through the Office of Fleet Management, in addition to the purchase of some heavy equipment, which supports our public works operation. And lastly, the second phase of a radio system replacement, which is being done in support of our Division of Public Works and the Office of Bridge and Traffic Safety, as they had been operating on a low-band radio system that is no longer supported. They've been working in cooperation with the Sheriff's Office of Emergency Communications, and we are integrating our radio system into state radio infrastructure as recommended by our Emergency Communications Group, which has saved us significantly in terms of the cost of that project and will allow our Division of Public Works to be able to communicate with one another across the county. And as you can imagine, that is a lot of ground to cover and was a very good solution to what otherwise would have been a very expensive project. And so that concludes my comments this evening on the current fund budget. Before I open it up for questions, I do just want to mention the county library budget. The county library budget, as proposed, is $6,564,657, or an increase of $300,354, or a 4.8% increase over the 2021 budget. It is very important to note that the majority of that increase is the result of group health insurance as well as pension costs. So that is what is driving the increase in the library budget this year. You will also note in the supporting documents the summary of the open space tax levy, and has been the practice of this board for quite a number of years. There is no proposed change to the open space tax levy this year. And so that those are the other two budgets that I wanted to bring to the board's attention. There is one other thing that I really failed to mention, and that is when we look at the budget, and that this is not the alternate, but the budget that we were discussing over the last several months in our committees. There are really just two appropriations that are driving the increase on the budget, and that is group health insurance as well as the county's obligation to pay for the maintenance of patients in psychiatric institutions. Mm-hmm. And when you look at that, that comprises more than 90% of what the total increase is on the budget as presented. And so it's very interesting. And you actually see that reflected because when you look at what the total other expenses are, the total other expenses in our budget are just going up a very small, not even a percent. And so you can see how tight this budget is. I know Commissioner Fantasia talks about wants and needs. The message has been heard. It's been received. And we have advanced what I believe to be a very responsible budget. I believe that the county, as a result of the good financial position that we find ourselves in, it is prudent to use that additional fund balance to support the budget and reduce what otherwise would be a much larger increase in county taxes. We can do that as a result of the good financial position. And as was mentioned by Mr. Serinelli, it's something that we'll need to be mindful of moving forward in subsequent budgets, because it will be something that the ratings agencies will look at as we go out to have our debt rated, and just to be mindful that we use an appropriate amount of fund balance consistent with the adopted fund balance policy by the board. And so that really concludes my comments on the budget, and I welcome any comments that the board may have. Maybe I should open it up to Elka if she's got any additional comments that she wanted to make.
I just wanted to say that,
Excuse me, thank you.
I'll keep it, so then if you have questions. I just wanted to say that the budget was a collaborative effort between the division and department heads and the budget subcommittees. I would like to give a special thanks to Mary Lee Van Hooker and Greg Poff for all their hard work in this process. And after your questions, my only question to you is if I would have the approval to move forward for the state budget. So I'll wait for your questions and comments first.
I can't hear what you're saying, the last part of what you're saying.
Was that at the end of your questions, I would just need the approval to move forward on the state budget so that we can introduce on March 9th and move forward on the capital project so I can get that information to our bond council to get those ordinances drafted.
So Director, I guess back to you.
Director
Okay, well-
Fasano, do you have any order in what you want us to ask or speak?
I was just going to go, I guess I'll go in our usual format. We'll start to my left. How about that?
Very good.
Okay. Sylvia.
I just want to thank everyone involved. Thank you, Elka and Mary Lee and Greg for the time, the efforts, the revisions, listening to everything that the board had to say and then making the adjustments. And I think it's an excellent budget for this year. And I was glad that because we had a good year, revenues were in and fund balance was up, we were able to take some of that and share it with the taxpayers. So I'm very pleased and very grateful for all your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Chris, any questions or comments?
Yeah, let me just get my breath because I ran down the hallway. I didn't want to miss you, Elka, even though I did miss you. No, I appreciate everybody's effort to keep our budget as low as we can. I do really appreciate us trying to help out our employees and make a better living for them here at the county. It was a platform that I stood on when I got here. It's still important to me to this day that we have a good working environment, so I really appreciate that. Just one question I have to ask. Retro pay, and this is probably more a question for you, Elka. I don't understand how we don't implement retro pay. I should have asked you that when we met last time. From what I understand, it was done in the past, and we don't do it anymore. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Just could you explain that to me?
Retro pay as far as
So
when
we
somebody-
pass our budget. When we pass our budget, we're starting the following month. Everybody's going to get their raise. But
Right.
if we give, I'm just throwing a number out, say $5,000, they're only going to get $2,500 that year. They should get $5,000 because that is technically their raise for that year.
well, they're
Hence the retro pay.
so the way the salary is being increased to a certain dollar amount, and it's effective once the commissioners approve that. So we're in the process of, there's a policy that's being drafted with our council regarding effective dates. The board has the right to make an effective date earlier, but it should be like a promotion would be effective once the board approves the promotion. So it would be effective after the board votes on it.
So technically, we can change that and say January 1st, even though we pass our budget.
Yeah, let me just jump in, because I think we're talking about a number of different things.
Okay.
So when there is a salary increase, and the salary increase, generally speaking, comes in two forms. One is through your represented staff who operate under a contract. And so those contractual salary increases are effective the date that's in the labor agreement. So those are done on a calendar basis. So January 1st salaries go up in accordance with the collective negotiations agreement. For the non-represented staff, those salaries are set by resolution of the board, and those are effective the first of the year as well. So the salary increases are done on a calendar basis. What you're referring to in terms of retro pay, then retroactive pay, come in a couple of different instances. Elka mentioned one in terms of promotions. So when someone receives a promotion, the promotion typically will be set to whatever the first pay is following the board's approval of that promotion.
Understood.
And then there are instances where the county will grant a salary adjustment. So separate and apart from whatever salary increase someone has received. And that's what Elka was getting at, is those salary adjustments only become effective once the board authorizes that. Elka and I...
Kind of exactly what you explained. Promotion, salary adjustment falls into the same line.
Yes.
That
yep. And then the salary increases are done pursuant to either a collective negotiations agreement or the resolution that the board adopts.
As a follow-up to Chris's question, is there anything, thank you, Craig. As a follow-up to Chris's question, just in that area, is there anything being done differently in this budget than previous budgets when it comes to what Chris is calling retroactive pay?
I have a question, clarification.
Well,
Sure. Sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So let me kind of restate what I think I heard. If I'm working at the county and we're passing the budget, if I'm entitled to a raise, I get my raise in January. If we're negotiating, and the union's negotiating and we do not have a contract, they settle the contract in June, I still get my salary going back to January. Is that correct so far?
Yes.
You would get your salary based upon the terms that were agreed in the contract.
Okay. However, if I'm up for promotion and I get that promotion in August, then my increase would start in August.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And also, if I can add, we've had situations where mid-year someone has taken on additional responsibilities. There have been new statutes from the state that have come, which increased workloads. So that's more or less when salary adjustments come in. When workloads, statutes, different things change that didn't follow the normal trajectory of a standard raise. So when those things have happened, we've done adjustments, and those adjustments only take place after the board approves. Like Elka was saying, I can recall that happening, and it's effective. You know, the board would vote, and then the first pay period. So does that make sense? So when it's adjustment for additional duties or?
100%, I understand it totally. I do not like it. I will go on the record for saying that. I don't like that whatsoever. I think retro pay is very important, and I don't agree with it. But nevertheless, I understand it.
Can I also just add that the pension, when they look at our IROC, which is our report of contributions, they require documentation as to what the effective dates are. So if the resolution on the personnel agenda does not state when it's effective, they will question something that is prior without any type of contract, why it was given retroactively. So that is why we want to create a policy that we're in the process of drafting that you will be voting on as to how to move forward with that. So we are addressing the issue.
So let me understand what you're saying, Chris. You're saying if a person gets a promotion in June.
Well, salary adjustment. I get the promotion thing. Something came up and we promoted you, but if we're trying to get somebody where they should have been previously, that to me, it should have started on January 1st. Promotion's a little different, and maybe that's just me looking at things like that. You know, an opportunity came up, we gave the promotion, thank you very much for the promotion, well, now you're gonna get more money. Salary adjustment, you should have been there already. To me, it should start January 1st. That's my thoughts. I understand what you guys are saying. That's how it's written. I don't like it.
So you're saying at the middle of the year, we decide to raise somebody's salary?
Adjust.
If we came into January 1st knowing that we wanted to give this person or these people X amount of dollars, for that this is their salary adjustment because they should be this is where they should be, then they should start January 1st. This is not necessarily a promotion. This isn't a promotion. This is a raise that I want to give you, not a promotion. They're still in the same spot.
So what you're
They should
saying is
get retro pay.
when we do comps, so for instance, if we realize that somebody is grossly underpaid, we do a comp with another county, we have the conversation and say, wow, they are significantly underpaid in comparison to ABCD. We all, collectively bring it here, it's discussed, or in personnel or whatnot discussed, right? We bring it here and we vote on it. What you are saying is, if the intent was, obviously, in the next budget cycle to do it, and we knew about it prior, it should then date to January 1st, which Elka is saying may pose a bit of a problem if it does not align from a pension or contribution standpoint.
Only if it's not written in the resolution.
Understood.
So can we fix that?
Sorry.
Can't hear you, Greg, sorry.
I think we're all talking the same thing. The final authority on such an adjustment or action is the action that's taken by the board, and that really speaks to what Elka has said in terms of having a written policy so that it's clearly understood. Because I think one of the struggles that we've had is that over time, different administrations have implemented things differently. Even the same board, based upon some research that we do, the same board handled things differently. And, it's very difficult to go back sort of historically and try to put the pieces together because you don't always have a complete record of what's being done. So, my suggestion would be let's take a look at what Elka has prepared in terms of a policy, and then we can adjust that, and ultimately then the board will be asked to authorize it, so that there's just a clear understanding as to how the different adjustments will be handled.
Right. Then we could do this before the budget? When we vote on the budget?
Well,
We don't have to,
yeah, it doesn't.
anytime.
Yeah, right. They're two separate things. The budget doesn't need to wait on the policy, and Elka has a working draft. I mean, it's not like we're coming up with this. As a matter of fact, I think it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed.
So we could implement this year?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
The only, just to do a little more background on that, is that when budget were approved with salary increases for various people, sometimes employee services didn't get those requests to actually implement it until September, and then wanting to go back to January. So now you're opening up 3 quarters worth of pension reports and doing retro adjustments, which then you get a separate retro bill. So if they could be done more expeditiously, then it would be less of retros that we're calculating.
And that's part of it. With having a written adopted policy, the division directors and department administrators can be reminded of what the adopted policy is, and to be more timely in submitting their requisitions to employee services so that these things can be properly and appropriately implemented. There's a lot of moving pieces. So, yeah.
So I have a question. So maybe I heard you incorrectly. So are we saying that a request comes in, and in January I want to promote somebody, doesn't, for some reason it doesn't get the personnel, or goes to personnel, they don't get around to it till September? What are we saying here?
I'm saying from the divisions, the submissions for a raise may have come in, like they asked for it in their budget presentation the previous year, but then they didn't get around to doing it until September, June.
They didn't get around to putting the paperwork in for the employee.
Correct.
And they promised the employee the promotion in January, that I'm looking to do this in January.
Right, after.
So I would, I like to have time to think this out more. However, I think if you're saying, hey, I'm going to promote you in January, that paperwork should be ready to go. We have to go through this hearing before you can do it. So if they're doing the work, I have to agree with Chris that should go, I'm just looking at the logic of how I'm going to do this. And I think, because I just have some historical information from working here and stuff, and there were a lot of people doing jobs outside of their titles that really didn't get compensated till a year later, and that money didn't go back. So I do think that we have employees that do work hard, rise to the level of things, and we should fix this so that it's equitable. As long, and everybody knows what the rules are, but that it's an equitable thing. Okay, got it.
And promotions, people do get out of title pay until they get their promotion, so
No,
that shouldn't
necessarily.
be an issue either, if it's put through.
I'm going to go there. Okay. I'm not gonna go.
All right, so the end of the day, obviously, what I care about is retro pay. Not so much promotions, I understand that, and I get what you're saying too, right? They get compensated for that. Retro pay for those salary adjustments. A lot of information, didn't get it all, I'll be honest, but that is my point.
Well, let's see the policy that's waiting on
That's
your
all.
desk.
I appreciate that, that's all.
Okay. Anything else, Chris?
That is it for me, thank you.
You're welcome. Commissioner Fantasia.
Okay, thank you. What I can say is that I am very pleased with use of fund balance. I know when I was on the council in Franklin, I always thought that was kind of the power of fund balance. That money is not ours. It is taxpayer or revenue-generated funds, and it's not meant there to. It's not held there to build these giant, safety nets. It's used as a safety net, but when there is you can't necessarily even say surplus, refer to fund balance, maybe that's the wrong terminology for it, but it needs to go back to important needs. That is the whole purpose of fund balance. So we've seen situations with towns, cities, having too low of a fund balance and really getting burnt. And I like the fact that we have a healthy one, but we're also using it intelligently in a year when we are paying, these exorbitant costs. The one that has stuck with me since I've joined this board is the sharp increase in the state mental health facilities. We're talking $500,000, $800,000 increases just year after year. The pandemic caused a steep increase, you see, from even the prior year to how many Sussex County residents. Now, keep in mind, I had asked about this when we were in the Budget Subcommittee, and I said, is this just for Sussex County residents? And it is. This is straight up Sussex County residents who are requiring support in state mental health facilities. So I think this really is the year to use it. I think this is the year also when we did look at comps with other counties to be able to make those salary adjustments and really offer people a fair and working and living wage, which I think is really going to make a difference even in the quality of employee and the work and what they bring to the table. A little appreciation does go a long way. And I think it's our responsibility. So I totally agree with Chris when you said that was a priority. So I think this is absolutely the year to do it, and I'm glad to see it in the budget. The other thing that I am very happy with is, when I was running for my first term, our meetings with our two Serenellis about our debt reduction, and was it a 30-year plan, was it a 50-year plan, and to get a 10-year debt reduction plan authored, spearheaded by my running mate at the time, Josh Hertzberg, and when we sat and went through it, I was very pleased last year to not see less applied to our debt reduction plan. And this year, again, we are continuing on the trajectory. We are not wavering from our 10-year debt reduction plan that will bring us to a level that of even purchasing, which is the dream, right? The goal. And we do not have to wait 50 years for this. We don't have to wait 30 years. We're all going to see this. We'll all be alive to see this, God willing, right? I mean, the 50-year had me sweating. I said, I don't know. This 50-year thing isn't working for me. But so I'm very pleased with that piece. And then, all joking aside, I know Elka had asked about whether we were able to move forward, whether we would like you to move forward with both of the budgets for the state and then for the capital. The board has received some information just today that does have somewhat of an impact on the budget of the college here. So we would need a little bit of additional time to gather some more information before we determine whether we need to reevaluate the budget for the college. So I know that that's something that I would say you have to give us just a few days perhaps to kind of evaluate some of the information that we've received before we can move forward with any type of green light for the budget for this facility. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Is it appropriate if I just jump in?
Of course, it's appropriate.
But before he talks, I just wanted to say that I agree with, you said everything I wanted to say, so I don't have to say too much, other than one of the things I ran on was the financial plan, and I actually was attacked by members of my own party even for that plan. And I want to just say it is ironic that we have a plan and we're moving forward and it's working, and I think that's a good thing. And I think the county will be ultimately in better shape following the plan. So.
Thank you, Herb.
Thank you.
Greg, do you want to?
I think just one thing that I might ask for the board's consideration based upon Commissioner Fantasia's comment. What would be very helpful, because it's something I'm particularly proud of, but when you can render a county budget onto a single sheet of paper, it makes it look like, wow, that's manageable. It's anything but. And so I would just ask if maybe the board might consider authorizing the chief financial officer to proceed with either the budget or the budget alternate, subject to confirmation and possible amendment concerning Sussex County Community College, only because that will give Elka and her staff and ultimately the auditors get involved. The process itself is time-consuming, and right now, for a potential introduction for the beginning of March, every day counts. Mm-hmm. So if the board would be willing to give consideration to authorize subject to, it would just be most appreciated.
That's fine.
I think that achieves exactly what our sentiment was.
Yeah. Thank you.
I too wanted to thank you, Greg and Elka, and all of our teams on this budget. A budget workshop is usually not perceived as a fun thing. Proposing an alternate budget at a workshop somehow makes this even less fun. But
no comment.
But in this case, this budget alternate actually is, I think, really important for a lot of reasons, on top of a little less reliance on fund balance and on our tax levy, obviously a significant reduction in group insurance, which we know to be a problem this year, But I did want to reiterate how important and how significant I think it is for this board to consider taking action that results in $619,000 for salary adjustments for our employees. The need for that now, today, is super, super relevant to this board in terms of positions that we have open and have been open for a while, and then positions that we finally get someone to fill that opening and they last less than a month because they found someone that offers something better. Those issues today could, and I think are, becoming magnified every day that goes by. So having a budget alternate that is able to accomplish what our budget does, but also accomplish, I think, a big initiative of this board in particular is quite impressive to come in at these numbers. So I did just want to thank our administration and all the board members who have been involved in this almost every day for the last few months. But I want to be able to get that to what Dawn said and to what Greg said is to see if we can get some type of answer to you, Greg, about what budget to proceed with pending any changes or modifications for more information that we may need, Dawn. So, do we need to formalize that action, Greg? Do we need to take a...
That's really the board's pleasure. Provided that there are no objections, the administration understands the board to authorize us to prepare the 2022 budget using the proposed alternate with total revenues and appropriations of $117,362,709. The library budget with total revenues and appropriations equaling $6,564,657, and the open space tax levy in an amount of $395,000. So long as there are no objections and that we can proceed and give the Chief Financial Officer the authority to advance that forward, subject to confirmation of whatever outstanding information there is relative to Sussex County Community College. I'm fine asking her to proceed accordingly, or you can ask for a motion and adopt that formally. It's really the board's pleasure.
I'm fine with what you just said. I don't feel the need to take formal action tonight. We will be taking formal action on this budget, though, just for the record, in the future.
Oh, absolutely. Introduction, March 9th? Yeah,
9th.
yeah. Don't miss it. It's going to be exciting.
I don't have any objection to that. Does any board member have an objection to that?
Do not.
No? Good for now. Okay, and thank you to Serenelli as well. Thank you, and to your father.
Director, if I may, just one other comment.
Sure.
While I certainly appreciate her taking some time and me putting her on the spot to add a few comments there at the end, the one person she forgot to recognize was herself, and that is our Chief Financial Officer, Elka Yetter, because whatever credit she gives to certainly me, the budget director works very hard, but Elka deserves a tremendous thanks for all of the effort that she puts into this. And you're, as I said, you're seeing sort of just the kind of the icing on the cake, all of the component pieces that go in there, not to mention having to put up with me. That's pretty aggravating, as you all can attest to as well. But I'd like to thank Elka for her hard work, and not only that, but she's balancing, calculating out salary proposals for a number of contracts that we have open, trying to get the budget together, preparing the annual financial statements and debt statements. I mean, this is a very tough time of year, so thank you for all of your efforts and hard work.
Commissioner Fasano, may I just, in my comments, and I was getting feisty about the state facilities and whatnot, I was not able to offer my thanks, but I thank the financial team for one very, very specific thing. The five of us on the board, we can be a bit spicy about what we need and our wants at times. I don't say salty, I prefer spicy. And I have to say, the trio of Greg and Elka and Mary Lee, they are so calm. We could call them sometimes and ask them for something in the 11th hour, you know, if we have a priority that emerges, and they take it with a smile and move forward with the board's wishes. So I just want to thank you for being calm and accommodating and, you know, so willing to work with us all the time.
Well said. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
All right. We have no personnel agenda. Greg, do you have anything you'd like to add? You've been a little quiet today.
So in conclusion, I think I'll give my voice a rest, and thank you. I'll let the budget presentation stand as my report. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you, Greg. We do not have a county council report here. Does any board member have any unfinished business? Seeing none, does any board member have any new business? Seeing none, item 21 on our agenda is our second public session from the floor this evening. It's our final one as well, and this public session is for those wishing to make general comments of 3 minutes or less regarding non-agenda topics. When you arrive, please line up at the microphone and maintain 6 feet social distance with other attendees. State your name and your municipality for the record, and when public comments are closed, I will do my best to answer any questions or comments. So with that, is there a motion to open the floor to public comment?
So moved.
Commissioner Patillo moves. Is there a second?
Second?
Commissioner Fantasia seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries, and public session from the floor is now open. Is there anyone here in the public who would like to make any comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to close public session from the floor?
So moved.
Commissioner Patillo moves. Is there a second?
Second?
Commissioner Fantasia seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. Item 22 on our agenda is our reminders, and we'd like to remind you to please check the county's website at www.sussex.nj.us for meeting schedules and pertinent updates. We have no executive session tonight. I know. So with that, I'm going to ask, I can't believe it, for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Commissioner Patillo moves. Is there a second?
Second?
Commissioner Fantasia seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Get home safe.